All right. Hello, everybody. So now I'm going to use sheet number 15 from the mask design kit that I purchased. Now this is kit number 2, so it has a few more things than kit number 1 for the Refit Enterprise. But surprisingly to me, the Easter egg in this kit is that the stripes for the landing bay area are here in this kit. They're right here in this area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mask this off with the stripes only, and then I'll paint the whole thing with the dark color. Then when I finish, I'll pull the mask off, and this will all be see-through. And I've painted the back of this yellow. So I'm going to put an LED light underneath. So this should shine through in yellow colors. I've also ordered the landing bay lighting effect from Tenna Controls. That should come in a few days, so I'll be drilling some holes here. So we'll have a glowing landing strip along with the landing bay lights coming through. Really looking forward to that. But right now, let's go ahead and do this. Now, in order to do this, you need to cut off the whole section, or cut the section out. So I'm going to take care of that right now. And let's go ahead and do this here. Start peeling what I want to take off. So let's do it with this. Gotta do this really slowly. Perfect. Perfect. This is going to be just a little tricky. beautiful. And there you have it, my friends. A beautiful masked set for your landing bay. Wow. All right, we'll be back in just a bit with more of this build. Okay, here's what I've been working on. And before I show you, well, first thing is first, I'm about to start the painting process on the Arboretum. And I went ahead and masked off the parts of the Arboretum that I need to attach the Photoetch pieces to. So I went ahead and masked that off. I'm also masking them off because I want the light to shine through some of the areas. Because if you look at the Photoetch piece, and by the way, I've already primed these and I'm waiting for the decals from HDA Modelworks to come in. But basically there's openings with view screens on these, and I want light to shine through that so that it just, I mean, I know you might not be able to see it once it's all said and done, but I figure if I leave these pieces unpainted, the light will shine through those. And so I'm going to primer this white, and then I'm going to start the painting process. Blue, brown, I have some grass substance that I'm going to put down, and a few little trees here. I went ahead and snapped off the Super Mario trees, as many people fondly refer to these, the Super Mario trees that are in this. Snapped them off, kind of sanded them down a little bit, and I'm going to replace them with little trees, you know, on that. Something else to point out, I didn't point this out in the first few videos, but since we're doing the refit, this kit actually comes with two bottoms. And this bottom is for the 1701A, and the other bottom is for the refit. So when I first got the kit, I made sure to designate which was which so I wouldn't be confused when I was putting it together. And they're very subtle, but you know, some of the, if you look at it from the inside, it's practically the same actually. But when you look at it from the outside, this is where the subtle little difference is on the outside. So just to kind of point it out, what helped me see the difference was this little set of markings or moldings. I don't know if you can see that in camera, but there's a little set of moldings right there that is on the A that is not on the refit. It's completely free of the molding in the plastic there. The other thing, of course, the big difference here is the fact that there are lines at the bottom here that there are not on the refit. There are no lines on the refit bottom. So if you're putting this model together, please be very careful. Please know exactly which ship you are building so that you don't make the mistake of putting the A bottom on the refit if you're making the refit, okay? There's a few other differences. I mean, the line on the A, the grid line comes out a little more, so you've got like what looks like two different grid lines here. You don't have that on the refit. It's just a very clean one grid line here. So there's a couple of ways, and of course, in the instructions, of course, the part numbers will tell you the difference as well. So make sure that you have to decide which ship you're going to build before you start this build so that you'll know which bottom to use. All right, something else I want to point out on this build is the back fan, the back shuttle landing bay entrance. There's some problems with it and the way it fits onto this. So what I did is there's some tabs that stuck out here, and I'll show you some pictures in a bit. But these tabs I had to cut off so I could fit this in. And even with that, this particular mold that I had had a little dip right here in the mold. So I had to cover that up with some perfect putty there, perfect plastic putty, and sand that in. But I was still able to preserve the lines on this. Now, keep in mind, I'm doing all this before painting because I want to use as much of this liquid cement for plastic models as possible on the grid lines and on the joints that come together, because I want these joints to melt together and to prevent light leak. So the better they melt together once you spray plastic on it or paint on it, the better they melt together. When you spray paint over that, it'll be seamless. There'll be no light leaks because the paint is being held up by this cement plastic that's melting the plastic together there. That's what I did on the edges here. I also had to put some perfect plastic putty on some of these edges here and sand them down a little bit to kind of cover up the little openings around the Arboretum windows. And the last thing I just want to point out here is that I did cut off these tabs here, because my plan is to, once I finish the shuttle bay, the landing bay, I'm just going to be, just kind of put it in and make sure to kind of jostle it in sideways. And I'm told that you can basically make it slide in. I've already tested it with the floor, and the floor slid in perfectly and was just perfectly flush over here. So I went ahead and cut those out, and it went down perfectly. I will say that there were some tabs on this top part here that I actually cut off as well, and I sanded down. They were basically hindering this thing from closing completely. So I did that as well. And I think once we're ready to glue everything down, once the lighting is in there and all the inner parts are done, I believe that we'll have a very flush, minimal putty lined, secondary hull. That's the hope, and I'm working toward that. I can already see that I'm going to need some putty here, here, and here to kind of seal up some of these seams there, and maybe use use the cement glue, pardon me, and some sanding here once it dries up. All right. Last thing I want to show you, I'm letting this dry, but this is the paint on the floor of the landing bay that I've been using. Now, the floor itself, I found some reference material online, and the floor is supposed to be kind of a blue-gray paint, and I didn't have any. I was going to buy some online, but I kind of looked through some of my old spray paints, and I found this old bottle of Model Master Dark Sea, SGL Dark Sea Blue, and I thought, oh, well, this is perfect. It looks kind of blue-gray, and it's Model Master. And I don't remember when I purchased this, but this is kind of an old bottle. It went on fine. Like you saw earlier, I have the masking on here. So once this dries out, I think I might, I can see some of the scratching on this from, I was using some sandpaper. I'm probably going to need to go through with some very fine grit paper and remove some of these scratches and then do another coat of this paint. You're not going to see the back of this. There's going to be decals on there, but I really don't want scratching up here in the front. I want it to look really smooth. So I'm going to use a fine grit piece of sandpaper and just really lightly go through that and try to remove some of these scratches and do another coat. All right, so I'm working on that. Once this is done, I'll do a little video pulling off the masks so we can see what that looks like. Okay, we're back, and I have a little makeshift paint stand here that I use. I've kind of created with 2 sawhorses, a piece of plywood, and some extra little pieces of wood here and there. And I wanted to give you a little insight into how I prep the saucer and paint it. So this is the bottom part of the saucer. The first step that I did was I painted the bottom with just a black, flat black, and I've let that cure for 24 hours. Really important that you let your paints cure on such a big project, because I've seen people who don't let it cure and they immediately start painting other stuff on top of that, and then the paint starts cracking and lifting when you put the mask down and all that. Now, of course, you don't have to worry about masks and lifting on this side, but you still want it to cure, because I'm gonna paint this white overall, okay? So that's the next step. And then of course, on the other side, I did the gray primer, because gray and white mixed together kind of give you that grayish look on the Enterprise Refit, but it's still white. And when you put your Aztec and paint that on here, it's going to look really, really nice. So what I've done here is I've prepped this gray primer by getting a very fine grit piece of sandpaper, very fine, and I just went through and I took off all the extra little bumps, and I've made this really, really smooth. So now I've got a really smooth surface that I'm gonna spray my base coat on, and for base coat I'm using this Rust-Oleum Flat White Primer spray can. And when you're painting, it's very good to have just your wife's hair dryer or your own hair dryer. Use it on a cool setting and do the painting. So I'm going to show you a little bit of what I do as I'm painting this, and then we'll get back to the bench in just a few seconds. And that right there, my friends, is the painting process. Now, I'm going to go ahead and continue off camera. There's a few little really gray spots right here that I need to kind of go over here and here. But I'm going to let this sit and cure right here for about 15 to 20 minutes. And I'm going to pick it up and transfer it into my inside into the room where there's a fan, and it can cure a lot faster in the room, the hobby room that I have there, where the bench is. So once this is done, I'm going to let this cure for about half a day, and then I'm going to flip it over and spray the black on the inside. I don't want to have this not cured yet when I flip it over, because then you can have markings on this paint job here from, you know, what it's resting on. So you want this to be as smooth as possible. The other thing is, when this cures, you can sand it again with that very fine piece of sandpaper if there's any little bumps that you feel or things like that, and it'll come out looking nice. You saw that on the saucer, the top section in a few videos back, or last video. By the way, using the hair dryer as you're painting such a big job kind of helps seal the paint a little bit, gets it to cure a little faster, not quite faster, but you know, at least you're not leaving this paint job and it's completely wet. You've got something that is starting to dry pretty quickly. So this really, really helps. I recommend having your own little hair dryer. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Make sure it's not really hot. You don't want to melt plastic, melt paint. Just the cool setting on this is fine. There's no brand that I'm recommending. Just buy something. You might even already have it in your home if you look around. So definitely recommend a hair dryer for this type of paint job. All right, we'll be back. Okay, everybody. I want to also talk to you about what I'm doing here for the Photoetch, and this is not something that you see very often, but you know, there are people out there doing it. When you cut the railings out, the instructions tell you to angle them outward about 15 degrees. You could do that if you want, angle them outward. But the big thing here is the instructions actually tell you to bend this piece here, these two gates, so to speak, back, so that they are they're actually pointing back into this little the railing meets the turbolift shaft here. All right, so let's go ahead and use our tool. This is a Tamiya bending plier, and I encourage you, if you don't have one of these and you're working with Photoetch, get a tool like this. This definitely helps when you're working with Photoetch. So let me bend these back. Now we have both gates bent backward, as you can see. And I can kind of bend them backward there. Let's see how they fit. Just going to do a test fit here. By the way, when you're putting this on, this thick part of the gate railing is what you glue onto the side of the actual wall of the landing bay here. You kind of glue it on right there, and that's what it's going to look like with the railings bent back toward the turbolift shaft. Okay, great. So let's go ahead and take care of this real quick. I'm going to go ahead and use the CA glue on this, and here's how I'm going to do it, folks. So I've got just a little scrap piece of computer paper here that I tore off of a sheet and a toothpick, but I'm going to put a little bit of this glue right here on this piece of paper, right? And then I'm going to use this toothpick, grab some of this glue, and just kind of put it on the plastic here. You got to do this kind of fast because, this CA glue tends to dry. It's not super glue, but it will dry up faster than regular cement glue, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put this piece onto it. Being very careful not to get any of this glue on your fingers there. There we go. There we go. Sorry if I went off camera. I'm trying to make sure that I get this on evenly. Great, so this is going on pretty good. Pardon me, I'm using this, I don't want to put my fingers on the glue, so I'm using this napkin here to kind of smash it down or put a little pressure on it. You don't want to get this stuff on your fingers. It'll take your skin off. That looks pretty good right there. Yeah, it's on really good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue the process for the railings here, the bulkheads, excuse me. So I'm going to continue this process for the railing here, and of course the bulkhead that goes here, and all the ceiling pieces. So I'm going to continue and all the other pieces. And by the way, if you do get this photo etch set for this landing bay, you definitely want to do this before you put the landing bay together. Get all the railings in there before you cement the landing bay completely together. It's just going to make the whole thing easier. Now, once I put everything in, let it dry a little bit, then what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and paint the inner walls. And I'm going to paint the inner walls kind of a tan color. The floor itself is a bluish gray. Like I said earlier, the inner walls, I believe, are tannish colors. And I might even put a few little 350 scale figures back here from that came with the kit. These little Photoetch 350 scale figures that are on this kit. By the way, on this Photoetch kit, I went ahead, you can probably see it here, but I just used a piece of sanding paper, and I went through and I just kind of sanded all the whole sheet, so that after I annealed it, of course, and that way these little pieces, whatever paint you put on them, sticks to it. You know, they're prepped for the primer and all that. Okay, my friends, we'll be back. All right. We're ready to remove these masks. By the way, I've done some work on the rec room, and I just wanted to show you that. This is the rec room that comes with the Photoetch kit. I purchased the decals from HTA Model Works. So like I said earlier, I sprayed this with a primer and then a clear coat, and then I applied the decals and covered it up with Scotch tape to kind of diffuse the light. And I put a little polystyrene sheet of plastic back here so that when it's lit up from behind, this is too bright, but when it's lit up from behind, you'll be able to really see this inside the ship. Look at how beautiful that looks. So yeah, it's going to be good. And I'm going to be working on the Arboretum next, and here are the two little pieces with the decals on them that'll go into the Arboretum. I can't pick them up, sorry y'all. let me do this, hang on. There we go, and there we go. So yeah, here are the two little pieces for the Arboretum. These will be glued to the sides, and I'm going to leave these areas lit up as well. You won't be able to see them very well, but at least they're there, and I love the way the little hallways show up on the ends there, that kind of like you're looking into the hallways almost. So these will go on the Arboretum. The Arboretum has been primed, and I cut off the Super Mario trees, and I'm about to prime the back, light block, or spray white on the back of this, and then I'll start working on the internal piece of this. But let's get to it. For now, I wanted to show you the actual removing of these masks here that I got from our mask design friend, Gary. So let's start with the middle one, I guess. That one's independent of the others. course, and when you light it up from the bottom, that yellow comes out. It's gonna look awesome, just awesome. Very, very happy, and this looks great. And I'm ready to move on to the next part of this. So lots of little moving pieces here and on this ship, and as you can see, it does take a lot of patience. There are a lot of little pieces, and you've got to think through what you're doing on this big build. But it'll all be worth it, everybody, at the very end, because you work on these little things, and the very end is just awesome. One more thing I wanted to point out real quick before we leave this update today is on the secondary hull. This little area right here, this piece is a clear piece. I didn't realize it until I was looking through the kit. So went ahead and glued it on with canopy glue because it's a clear piece, and got this canopy glue from Evergreen. It's really, really nice, and I recommend this. Also, when you look at the motion picture, this is not blinking. It's just a steady light right here and a steady light coming out of this area. So I'm going to paint this over with the base coat, the primer, but I'm going to protect this area here at the end so that it's clear, so that when everything's said and done, you'll see a light popping out of here and a light, popping out of here. So just notice that. I wanted to point that out. And of course, the other thing is when you're working with these Photoetch pieces, boy, you really need to have a Dremel. If you don't have one, totally recommend you get this kind of tool, because when you do cut the Photoetch off the sheet, there's going to be little burrs, that you have to get rid of. And you don't, the Photoetch pieces are so delicate. You don't want to get sandpaper or anything and start doing this, because then you might mess up some of the grills and things. But if you get, a Dremel, put it on really low, use your sanding piece, your sanding bit, and then put your Photoetch piece in your dominant hand. I'm right-handed, so my dominant hand is right. And then just hold the Dremel here as it's winding. I'm not going to do it on this. This is already done, but let me just demonstrate this to you. Put it on kind of low, and then you very delicately bring the piece close to the Dremel and sand down that burr. And you may need to move it a little bit. Be real careful though, especially when you're drilling down something that's close to some of the grills on this. You want to be very careful not to push into it, because it will bend this. So you definitely need a Dremel or a tool like this, not specifically a Dremel brand, but a tool like this. I'll leave a link for this one in the description if you want to pick one up. And you need to have a tool to bend the Photoetch with, as I said earlier. So I'll leave links for those in the description, my friends. Okay, thanks again for watching, and we will be back next week with more updates on this exciting build. I'm really excited to share this with you. And until then, please like, subscribe to the channel, share it. If you feel like you have someone that is interested or is doing this build at the same time, please share it, and be sure to search YouTube for other videos from other builders and see what they're doing too. The more knowledge on this build, the merrier. Okay, my friends, have a great week. See you next week.